Issue 42, Pro-Life versus Pro-Choice.
This is a message to those who try to prevent women from entering abortion clinics and carry big signs that say, "They kill babies here." Have any of you ever signed up to adopt a child? If not, why not? Is it because you don't want one, can't afford one, or don't have the time, patience, or desire to raise one? What if a woman who was about to enter a family planning clinic saw your sign and decided not to have an abortion after all, but chose instead to give her baby up for adoption to you? Would you accept it? What if the mother belonged to a minority group, or was addicted to drugs, or tested positive for AIDS? Why are you spending your time carrying a sign? Why aren't you volunteering to babysit a child born to a single mother so she can work? Why haven't you opened your door to a pregnant teenager whose parents kicked her out because she took your advice and decided not to have an abortion? As for you taxpayers who resent paying for abortions, who do you think pays for foster care, welfare, social workers, and juvenile delinquency? And let's talk about something money can't buy, love. Have you ever visited a home for abused and unwanted children? Have you ever been to court and seen all the children who commit crimes because they were born to mothers who didn't want them? I'm not thrilled about abortion, but I don't think anyone has the right to tell others not to have one unless he has done all the things I mentioned above. Self-righteous hypocrisy does not solve any of the underlying problems.
Comprehension. 1. Does the writer side with the pro-life or pro-choice movement? 2. According to the writer, what circumstances cause women to have abortions? 3. What does the writer want pro-life demonstrators to do? 4. Pro-life demonstrators grumble about tax money paid for abortions. Is this complaint logical?
Let's talk. 1. Do you think we must concede that an unborn baby has the same rights as any human being? 2. What's the difference between killing an unborn baby and killing a man in battle? 3. Is abortion an issue the government should intervene in, or something individuals must deal with by themselves? 4. Is it justifiable for pro-life people to kill abortion-performing doctors, calling them murderers? 5. Do you think a wife should have the right to have an abortion without the approval of the baby's father? 6. Are you mainly pro-life or pro-choice? Explain your reasons.
Opinion samples. 1. The argument for abortion seems to hinge on the rights of women. But what about the rights of the children? If abortions are abolished, unwanted babies will be forced into the world, already grossly overcrowded and overburdened with problems that seem unsolvable. If the desire is to enforce morality, the criminalization of women's right to control their own body and the opposing of family planning are not the way to go about it. Question: is it logical to relate the abortion issue to overpopulation?
2. Do you think it is fair that killing the already born is murder, but killing unborn babies is not subject to criminal law? We all know that the right to life begins at conception, don't we? Question: do you think the unborn baby has the same right as any other human?
Issue 42, Pro-Life versus Pro-Choice.
I don't see how we're ever going to be able to sort out the mess over abortion.
Why? What do you mean?
I mean that advocates on both sides of the argument seem to have unassailable moral grounds for the position they take, and I don't see how any acceptable compromise is even vaguely possible.
What do you see as being their strongest arguments on either side?
Okay, let me start with the pro-lifers.
Fine. What's their point?
It's simple, really, that killing humans before they're born is just as much an act of homicide as it would be to kill them after they're born.
In essence, the other side is in agreement, don't you think? But they disagree on the point at which humanity is defined.
Exactly. The opponents insist that conception is the beginning of life. Before that point, there is no life, and nothing changes afterwards. So they cannot imagine any logical alternative to that position. Hence, any abortion equates with the murder of a human being.
But the pro-choice advocates don't buy the idea of conception as equivalent to being human. An embryo, a fetus, are potentially human, but not yet so, not until they develop sufficiently to exist on their own outside the womb.
Yes, basically. The problem with that argument is that the moment of becoming human is not very clearly defined, so it is hard to operationalize it in any consistent sense legally. The idea of human existence from conception onwards is pretty straightforward. A woman is either pregnant or she isn't. There is no gray area.
So the pro-life position is the preferable one on logical grounds.
In a binary sense, either something exists or it does not. Although I don't think most pro-lifers attack abortion on purely logical grounds. It's primarily a moral, emotional response, much like the demands for an end to slavery in the 19th century, the notion that such a gross evil should not be allowed to exist.
Okay, then, what about the pro-choice position? Do they have a leg to stand on?
Yes, they certainly do. If we believe that human beings should essentially be in control of their own bodies, then nobody has the right to insist that a woman remain pregnant. In the same way that we should not subject other human beings to slavery because that condition deprives them of the right to make their own choices.
So women have the right to make a selfish decision even at the expense of the baby. Doesn't the child have the right to live?
The potential child, they would say. But their decision may not be entirely selfish. Many women are torn by economic and social factors and don't want to raise their beloved children in a hostile environment. They want to wait until they themselves are more mature, have a more financially sound household, and in many cases have a reliable husband to share the burden. They think anything less than that would be unfair to their children.
That seems rather twisted to me.
Yes, both sides have real dilemmas if their ideas are completely adopted. Forcing a woman to have an unwanted child seems to violate the rights of both mother and child, but depriving an innocent child, who never asked to be born in the first place, of the right to live also seems ultimately unjust and inhuman.
But the woman should have avoided becoming pregnant. She has some responsibility in the matter.
Most of the time, but it's often an impulsive act on her part. Probably alcohol is often a factor, making rational decision hard to come by.
But we don't excuse drunken drivers if they kill someone because their normal judgment was impaired. In fact, that is why we hold them accountable.
Yes, but no method of contraception is entirely effective. A woman may have taken every conceivable step to prevent conception and still become pregnant. Not to mention cases of rape or incest, where the woman has been victimized and giving birth to the resultant child would even further victimize her.
But don't you think fathers also have rights? Why should the baby be aborted against their will, since they have provided half the chromosomes and will continue to share the responsibility for raising it?
Ah, that's another complicating factor. But men don't actually have to go through the physical difficulty of bearing the child, and they don't risk their own health in the process. Giving birth is painful and potentially fatal for the mother. Another reason why some women don't want to stay pregnant.
Well, okay. I guess I see the problem more clearly now. Do you have any good solution?
No, not unless both sides are willing to make some key concessions to the worldview of the other. Right now, they are locked in ideological battle, with neither side willing to yield an inch, since neither is ready to recognize that the other has a valid moral point.
Questions. 1. What is the strongest pro-life argument? What is a possible effective counter-argument against that point? 2. What is the strongest pro-choice argument? What is the main flaw in that argument? 3. When does a human begin its existence?